Welcome to the Roots and Branches JJC Alumni Podcast. As the nation's first community college, JJC has been making history since 1901. With more than 70,000 alumni, we have an endless supply of stories to share. Listen in to find out how deep our alumni's JJC roots go and how far they've been able to branch out into our community and beyond. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. Today's episode is a special one because we actually have 4 alumni guests who are all part of our recent Alumni and Friends Trip to Switzerland, Germany, and Italy. I also had the pleasure of being the coordinator for this trip in partnership with EF Go Ahead Tours, so I'm thrilled to get to talk about our experience today. Now, to give you a little backstory, in 2021, when I was just getting settled into this alumni relations role, we decided to put out a survey to all of our alumni just to see what they were interested in. Was it just family events on campus? Was it professional development? Or was it something bigger, like a guided trip abroad? I saw many other colleges doing this so successfully, and I wanted to see if this was even an interest to our alumni. Turns out that particular question on the survey got a huge response from alumni saying, yes, I want to travel with you. Thankfully, I had the support of my advancement team, and JJC leadership gave us the go-ahead, no pun intended, and we went on our first Alumni and Friends trip to London and Paris in 2024. Talked about that trip on this podcast before, and it was very special, being the first one, and because we happened to be in Paris ahead of the 2024 Summer Olympics. So we ended up ending that trip with this float down the Seine, seeing the Olympic rings lit up on the Eiffel Tower for the first time. Really amazing stuff. And so, since that trip turned out to be a success and everyone made it home safely and with wonderful things to say, we got to plan the next one, which we all just returned home from last week. Now, before I go on about how amazing this trip was, let me introduce you to our alumni guests today. So first, we have Shelby Esterdahl.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
And Hank Brackett, our photographer.
Hi, Jen. It's truly a pleasure.
And Emily Wiles.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
And finally, Martha Aparicio.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you guys so much for being on the show today. So let's get down to this trip and the amazing experience that all of us just had. I'm glad we got to record at a time when it's all like fresh in our mind and we're all excited and looking back through our camera rolls. But I want to ask first and foremost, because I don't even know if I asked any of you this question, but what was it that initially drew you to this trip? Emily, what made you decide to want to take this trip with us?
I saw how fun London and Paris looked, and I was sad that I didn't go, because I definitely saw it come through. I remember the survey that you talked about of who wanted what, and I was excited to kind of get back in, because I graduated in 2018 from JJC, so just any opportunities to do alumni things sounded very cool. And so then when this came about, listing Switzerland, Italy, Germany I wasn't going to say no.
Shelby, what about you? I know that you kind of came in almost towards the end. Like we were getting pretty close. We were only a few months out from the trip. So what finally was the deciding factor for you?
I just jumped. I was ready. Again, I'm with Emily. Paris and London looked amazing, and I was so sad I didn't do it, and the timing was just right for me.
And Hank, you were on London and Paris with us. It was pretty amazing, huh? I'm assuming that had a big thing to do with you wanting to say, yep, I'll go on another one.
Yes, that was a great experience. And I think everyone kind of has a list in their head of places that they'd like to go to. It's not meant to be a negative, but none of these places were necessarily on the top of my list. But with the opportunity, being able to look into these places a little bit more, I grew more attached to wanting to see them and wanting to experience them firsthand.
Love that. So Martha, what made you decide to go on this trip with us, especially since you've never flown on a plane before?
Well, I honestly didn't even think about the plane aspect. All that was running through my mind was Switzerland had been one of the dream destinations of mine for the longest time. And when this trip was announced, it just came around a time of my life where I was in this pivotal moment where I wanted to see more and do more. And this trip landed right on my birthday as well. So it just felt like it was meant for me.
So let's talk about our itinerary. Now, the thing about London and Paris was we had a couple of days in each stop. We got to see quite a bit, had free time. We're really able to explore a little bit deeper, even though I think all of us would say we still want to go back to both cities because there was so much more to see. But this trip was nonstop. We had a wonderful private bus, which was the best part of this trip. It was just our group. And little did we know that we were going to get the world's best bus driver, Alberto, who I hope can listen to this translated version of the podcast so he knows that he got a shout out. But we had a private bus and we never stopped from start to finish. So our first stop was Switzerland. Emily, first thoughts on Switzerland when we arrived in Lucerne?
It's so beautiful. I want to move there now. I came home and was like, I'm moving to Switzerland. I don't know when, but it's going to happen.
Me too.
It was just so beautiful. There was so much to see. Just being able to wander. And that very first day, we had our wonderful tour director, Jürgen, just kind of take us on an impromptu tour and point things out. Just being right on the water is crazy. Like I've never seen before. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, Switzerland was gorgeous. And what I guess listeners probably need to know too is we arrived in Switzerland at 6 a.m. their time after really having been awake for a long time since our 2 o'clock flight in Chicago. So we were all a little sleepy that day and kind of walking through the town like zombies. But man, that fresh air and those mountain views definitely woke us up. Shelby, I think you said you wanted to move there too, yes? Switzerland
yeah.
now on your list?
Emily, I didn't wait till I got home. I was looking for jobs and condos while I was there. Like, it was beautiful. I would totally love to live there.
Yeah, it was an absolute beautiful location. So we got to learn a little bit about Lucerne and Switzerland in general. Obviously, everyone knows they're known for cheese and chocolate. We certainly got our fill of both. But I think personally, and I think you guys will all agree with me, that maybe one of the best days of the whole trip, but certainly the favorite part of Switzerland, was that we took an excursion to the top of Mount Pilatus. Not Pilatus, Pilatus. And we got to take a cogwheel up the mountain, and that was everybody's face. I kept turning back to look at everybody, and it was, Hank, you were like snapping photos out your window constantly. What was that experience like? Had you ever done anything like it before?
Not exactly. As a photographer, there's generally the notion of see a tall object, get to the top of it, and take pictures from when you get to the top. And so this fulfilled that to a T. But sometimes the landscape is such that you need a certain vantage point in order to see the beauty of it. And, seeing it from the ground level, there's a certain level and you can see the mountains in the distance. But being able to be there at the top and just see the mountain range, see the town below, just gives you a whole new perspective on the country and the natural beauty that's going on all around you.
So now, Martha, you were also snapping a lot of pictures on our way up the mountain. And weren't you also like recording your reactions for a vlog?
Yes, I was. I actually vlogged the entire experience of this trip because I wanted to take something home with me beyond a souvenir and also share the experience with my parents and my family members and relive it another time, even when I'm not even there anymore.
I think one of the fascinating parts about that cogwheel trip up the mountain is we get about halfway and we look out the window and there's just a cow. There's just a cow on the side of the mountain with his little bell. And it's like, oh, there's a farmer that lives on the side of this mountain. That was, I think, maybe the coolest thing. And just then to kind of figure out how they get supplies to him. I mean, Shelby, you were staring out. You got a couple cow videos, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. We got a few cow videos. It was just lovely. It was just hearing the bell go off as you're going up. It was just peaceful.
So we get to the top and we were told, so our tour director, Jürgen, also huge shout out to him. He's so wonderful. We're probably going to say his name 20 times in this whole episode. But when we get to the top, he tells us that he's actually been to the top of this mountain multiple times for the trip. And he said he's never been where it was this clear of a day. And I heard someone that was working up there say that they get like 2 or 3% of the year do you get a view that was this clear and that you can actually see for 200 miles, which is just like hard to process. And we lucked out with one of those days. Emily, how many pictures do you think you took just at the top of the mountain?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. Absolutely not. But I had many people being like, here, go stand over there and I'll take your picture. And you would have think we'd never seen animals before. We found some mountain goats on the side of these steep mountains. We were so enchanted by it. And so I got the most interesting photo of a mountain goat. He was above me, if you can believe that. I was walking through and I had to like kind of squat down and like look like all the way up. And oh my God, I have this picture of him looking down at me. And I was like, no way.
Okay, I'm going to need to see this picture and add it to my reel because I don't think I have any of the mountain goats on mine. I think I just took like a million pictures of cows.
I will share. You'd think we'd never seen cows before either.
I know. So we obviously are in love with Switzerland. You can tell we all could not get enough. And you think like, how are we going to leave this place and go somewhere else? But sure enough, we had to load our bus after that day at the mountain, and we were heading off to Germany. And the views that we had from our bus going across the countryside, leaving Switzerland and the Swiss Alps and going into the Bavarian Alps, it was just the coolest experience. And we had a couple stops along the way. I don't know if anybody realized, but there was actually 5 countries in this trip because we got to have a little experience in Liechtenstein, which was a very short, like, what were we there for? Maybe 2 hours or so. Shelby, did you get your passport stamped?
I sure did.
Yes. So they're not really stamping passports anymore, but Liechtenstein wants to make sure that the world knows that you visited. And so a lot of us were able to get our passport stamped, meet a very interesting shop owner. And then we were on our way. And Hank, can you pronounce the name of the castle we stopped at in Germany?
Not without risking saying something terrible in a different language, but yeah, it was Neuschwanstein.
Okay, good. Right. So we got to see some beautiful castles in Germany. Apparently, this castle was actually the one that was used as inspiration for the castle at Disney. Emily, our Disney girl, I think that was a big moment for you. Yes, seeing the inspiration for Cinderella's castle.
Absolutely. And I just signed up and then went to Disney with some friends and we went on Soarin'. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, I'm going to see this actual castle that we see is curved right now on this ride.
And Shelby, I got to give her a shout out here. When we were in our little stop there by the castles, we had our first German lunch and we went to a place and Shelby's like, okay, I've got to order for us. Shelby, tell everybody what our menu was on that first day in Germany.
Oh my gosh. The menu at the potato pancakes?
Yes, the potato pancakes.
Potato pancakes. We had a salad. We had burger. And the dessert. What was our dessert? Strudel. But
Yes.
The most amazing beer also came along with that. So...
Yeah, Germany greeted us warmly. We had a great first stop seeing the castles, and then we made our way into Munich. And while our London and Paris trip was very centered around the Summer Olympics, our trip this year, especially in Germany, was very much centered around the World Cup. And at the time, Germany was doing real well. Didn't have such a great luck the other day in their game, but Germany was doing well, and it was World Cup everywhere, which was really neat to see because it's not like here in the US necessarily where we have like sports bars where you watch it. This is like a community thing. So what we learned in Germany is just how important these beer gardens are as a community space, not just a place to go get a beer, but a place for community to come together and hang out. And we got to experience one with our tour guide. Jürgen set something up for us our first day in Munich, and we were able to experience that. And then I'm sure we all saw quite a few as we did our excursions and did our tours around Munich. Hank, favorite part about Munich? What did you like? Any interesting fact? Any big moment there?
I don't know that I would say there was any one particular moment. I did have some time to just kind of use their public transportation system and kind of see all corners of the city. There's parts of every city that are on all the postcards. And being able to venture a little bit outside of that gives you a little bit better sense of the culture and the everyday life of the people that you're around when you're visiting. And if I get a chance to do that when I'm traveling, I really like to take that opportunity.
I love that response, Hank. Now, Martha, what was your favorite part about our time in Munich, or maybe just even in Germany in general?
Yes, my favorite part while I was in Germany was when we were in the south of Germany and I got the opportunity to visit the Hohenschwangau Castle. It had a beautiful view, although I couldn't go inside. The grounds themselves were gorgeous. And then it had the most darling view of the Neuschwanstein Castle from afar. And it was just magical.
That's great. Shelby, what was your favorite part of Munich?
My favorite part involved you in the beer garden.
Oh, no, the pigeon. Oh, this is great. Okay, I guess we're going to share there. Pigeons are also incredibly friendly in Germany. They will just roost above you. And, you know, sometimes you're in the firing line of a pigeon doing things you don't want them to do above you. And it was quite an interesting scene in that beer garden to be assaulted by that pigeon. And Americans are kind of loud. And we really definitely, I think, got the attention of some other locals who were in that beer garden in that moment. So
that was a great
definitely
moment.
Not my favorite memory in Munich, but
I don't think it was Hank's either. He was ignoring us.
It was not Hank's either. That was another busy day, which is a part of this tours, is that, you know, the stamina that's involved to make sure that you've got this healthy balance of wanting to soak everything in and see it and also try to like keep up, and you're running on very little sleep and time, but we definitely made the most of it. We did have one excursion in Germany, actually two, because we have to talk about Austria, but one of our Germany excursions that we went on was to Dachau to see the concentration camp. And I won't spend a lot of time. I'll give everybody a chance to say a quick moment of what that experience meant. For me, it was a part of history that I needed to see, that I needed to experience, pay my respects, understand it, and see it in a different way. Shelby, what was your thought being there?
I definitely felt very similar to you. It was deep and it was heavy, but it was something that I am glad that I did and learned about being there, reading everything. We weren't even there long enough, but we were there for a while, you know?
Yeah, there was so much reading that we could have done in the museum there. In fact, some of us even visited the bookstore at the end, and they had so many incredible books with stories from survivors who could give their personal accounts. And I know it wasn't exactly like going on any sort of other excursion as part of the trip. Like you said, it was very somber, it was very heavy, but it was such a crucial opportunity for us to be able to get to experience that to those who wanted to go and be able to see the memorials and pay their respects. It was a really, really moving afternoon. And the other excursion that we took when we were in the Germany part of our trip was that we got to take a day trip to Salzburg, Austria. So again, adding another country to our list and seeing a very famous place. And this was a trip that a lot of people were excited to go on, especially if they were Sound of Music fans. And we had a lovely tour guide while we were there who took us to all of those movie stops and locations. She even had her little photo book to make sure we can see exactly where we were. Breathtaking views in Salzburg, wonderfully nice people. I really had a great time. So, Hank, what did you think of Salzburg?
Even as someone who doesn't have a strong connection to the movie, it's really an incredible place, just eminently walkable down these very like random curved alleys, almost streets and shops. Like we were there a fair amount of time and we even ran into a little bit of rain, but I don't think that anything could have dampened our spirits because it was such an interesting place to experience, even in that limited amount of time.
Emily, what did you think of Salzburg?
I just loved all the architecture. I'm not sure what I was expecting going on that excursion, but it was just such a nice tour. And like you said, I liked that she had the pictures so you could see where it was from the movies and have some context. But everything was just so pretty, and they really tried to just like preserve everything, all these buildings. And even though I didn't really know much of what else we were seeing besides what she was telling us, it was just so beautiful, just nice to appreciate.
So, Martha, what did you love about Salzburg?
Salzburg was such a charming and darling place. It almost hurts my heart to know that I wasn't going to go on the excursion originally because it was the most memorable one by far. When we walked into the Maribel Gardens, it was like a scene quite literally out of a movie. It was stunning, and I'm so glad I went on that excursion.
Shelby, you loved that excursion too, didn't you?
I sure did. I loved the flower garden when we first went in with the water fountain inside. It was so peaceful and gorgeous. I just wanted to see it from above and see how it looked because of the way the flowers were all laid out and organized.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite stops. And so clean. Just Emily, you
Everything.
said like them preserving it, but just so clean and like beautiful, picturesque. Also want to move there. Was scouting out some little condos that we saw over the gelato shop. I think that's where we said we wanted to go. So Salzburg was great. Wish we had more time, but it was still wonderful. Made it back to Germany, reunited with our group, and then we were off to our final country where we went to Italy. And we actually came in to northern Italy through the Dolomites. So we got to see all these different mountain ranges from the Swiss Alps to the Bavarian Alps and then the Dolomites of Italy. And all of us, I think, had our faces just like glued to the bus window because every corner we turned was a new view of something in all these quaint little towns. And instead of taking us right to Venice, we actually got to stop and do a tour of an old monastery, have a wine tasting at the most charming family farm. I'm going to get the name wrong, but I think it was like Grazerhof. Daniela and Paul were the owners. They were just fabulous. They treated us to lunch, every single ingredient in our lunch they make on their farm, from the cheeses, the vegetables, the meat, all of it. And then they served us the wine that their family has been tending to. It's 3 generations, I believe, in this family. So what an intro to Italy, to just show up in this gorgeous mountaintop winery, have this handmade meal, meet this sweet couple. I mean, it was really hard. I don't know about you guys, but it was really hard for us to want to leave. Hank, you took so many pictures of the vineyard. Like, wasn't that fascinating?
It was a great way to connect to the awesome things that we were seeing outside of our bus. It looks beautiful to our eye, but there are families that are maintaining those lands, and to be able to see that personal connection while also like enjoying a delicious meal and getting to know the whole process of winemaking that they have in this part of the continent is just really an enjoyable and enlightening experience.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Shelby, you made mention too. I'm sure Emily, you did as well. But Shelby, I remember you being like, I love it here. Do you
Oh
have
my
a job
gosh.
opening?
I did. I asked them if they had a job opening. Even when he was showing us how to pick off the leaves on the stems, I was like, oh, I could do this. He's like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, so now we have a new place that all of us can work when we decide to just pack up and move to northern Italy. So we got a little bit of time there, had a beautiful tour of the monastery. Again, just the basilicas and churches and places that we could see, and the craftsmanship and the history is just, you can't even, a picture just doesn't even do it justice, but it was so wonderful to see that. And then we got to have a little stopover for one night in a town called Bolzano, Italy, in the Dolomites, the most gorgeous, quaint little cobblestones town. And that was really our first night in actual Italy. So you can guess what our first meal was. Shelby, what was our first meal?
Nope, I don't remember.
What? You took a picture of me eating my margarita pizza.
Oh, the pizza.
The pizza. There's a picture of me smiling,
And
eating this
honestly,
pizza.
what I ate that day were like 2 different gelatos and then a pizza. Christina and I had 2 different gelatos before we went for the pizza. So you're right.
Ah, yes, the gelato. Emily, you were an early gelato person as well, right? Didn't you grab that when we were in Bolzano?
You bet I did. I had my pasta carbonara. That was my first meal. And then you bet I wandered right over to the gelato.
It was like we couldn't wait, and then to experience Italian food in that sweet, like little town. Again, weather perfect. Sitting outside. Pigeons also incredibly aggressive and not good about keeping their space in Italy, but we've started to learn to accept them for who they are. So we got our one little night in Bolzano. Our wonderful tour guide, Jurgen, didn't have to give us a tour of it, but he did. He'd been there, was able to give a little bit of history. And although I think all of us could have stayed there a little bit longer, it was time to get down to Venice. And on the way, and I don't know how I didn't know this, but Venice doesn't have any cars. You can't take a car to Venice. And I just wasn't even thinking about that. And so we found out that day we were saying goodbye to our bus driver, Alberto, who we just loved so dearly. We took a group picture with him in Bolzano before we left. And to really immerse ourselves in Italian culture, Jurgen had us pull over for a little roadside aperitivo where we could have some olives and cheese and a spritz to sort of celebrate our time with Alberto and to thank him for being there. And since that's what everybody does in Italy in the afternoon, we fit right in at our little rest area. So we arrive in Venice. First impression of Venice, Hank.
Well, what I know of Venice is that there's a lot of people, a lot of travelers, a lot of tourism. They have to do things because there's so many tourists there. So there's certain guidelines and mechanisms to get you into the city itself. But once you're in there, it's just like no place that you've ever been. And being able to walk around the entire island, being able to just kind of get lost in the maze of canals and sidewalks and streets and shops. It's just an incredible place. I don't think that anything can really prepare you once you're there just to kind of experience it on your own.
Agree. Emily, your first impression of Venice, pulling up on our water taxi. What did you think?
Well, at first I was like, uh-oh, I hope I can get out of this. I just couldn't believe that they had no, like, safety's the wrong word. But, like, at least there were everybody to be like, here, take my hand. You know, we were all a nice, close-knit group by that point to be like, I'll help you. In the nicest way possible, old. It's an old place
Yeah.
that they've preserved. Like we talked about it with Austria. They're like, we're not changing this. We love our water, and that's how it's going to stay, and good for them.
So much history. And we were there, and it was very, very warm that day. It was just the start of the European heat wave. So we got lucky at getting to experience that in a town all of water. So, you know, humidity and heat. And we had a very detailed, lovely tour guide that wanted to tell us every square inch of the history. And I think I looked at Shelby at one point, and we were all dripping with sweat, like, okay, guess what? It's time for gelato again. But Shelby, what was your first sort of impressions of Venice?
I thought it looked just like a postcard. It was gorgeous. I just had no words. It was just ideal.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time. We got 2 days in Venice, experienced the food. Actually, it was more like a day and a half, I guess, in Venice, but it was the perfect amount. We had a wonderful tour. We made the best of the heat. I can say that Venice was finally the point in the trip. I'd been thinking about it the whole time, but The thing that I was really wishing for was a little bit more ice. Nobody wants to use ice in Europe on those hot days. I couldn't wait to get home to an ice drink after being there. And so that's where we wrapped our wonderful trip, was in Venice. We had group gondola rides to explore, and man, those gondoliers, I give them some props. Emily, how was because we were all divided into a couple different gondolas. So how was your gondolier?
Strong. Just watching him do that. And then like they use the walls too to help steer.
Yes.
So they told us about how the boats are all handmade. And the whole time I'm thinking, we're going to crash. We're going to hit something. We're going to scrape something. And that's just it's not real. There's no bumping. They're just all so comfortable with maneuvering us around. It was so pretty. It was so pretty.
Yeah, it was fascinating watching them maneuver those boats in that water. And there were so many of them. They were pushing off walls, and some of them were singing. Some of them were dancing while they were doing it. It was the most incredible thing. So we end our trip. We all get to do our gondola rides and, head off for home. But Emily, you got to stay. So a part of our EF Go Ahead tour package is that we have a main tour, which is what most of us in our trip were on. But they also offer travelers an extension, and they can stay for a couple more days, maybe see one more location and so forth. Nobody took advantage of that in our London and Paris trip, but this trip had an extension of an additional 1 to 2 days in the Italian lakes. And Emily, you were someone who ended up staying and doing that. What did you love about the Italian lakes?
It was just so pretty. And I think we just keep saying that everything's so pretty over there. But we did, being an extension, it was a little bit more laid back. And so we had a little bit later call time. We started the day at 10:30. We had our own little boat to take us from these 2 other islands. And we walked around in these people who have their little shops. I got some limoncello for my dad and some polenta for my mom. I hadn't found anything for them the entire trip. And then we get to this little shop and I'm like, this is what we need. We had an amazing lunch. We had trout, which I'm not going to say I don't like fish. I do like fish, but that's not something I would pick being in Italy. I was glad that the menu was picked for us because it was so good and just so pretty. And then we got back to our hotel. We had just the most luxurious pool also. And so we took advantage of that. It was just such a nice leisurely stroll through this little town. And we got gelato at least 2 more times.
9 of our 21 travelers ended up staying for that extension. And really, they hit the jackpot in a couple of ways, because not only did they get to experience the beautiful Italian lakes, but they did not have to deal with a little flight cancellation that our group had to experience trying to leave Venice. And while it was quite an experience that took some coordination and figuring out, we got a bonus night in Italy in a little town called, Hank, help me, what was the name of the town we stayed in? Preglione?
Not Pregnazone, but kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah, we can't remember the name clearly, but we do know the name of our hotel. Shelby, where did we stay?
Hotel Crystal.
Hotel Crystal, in this little teeny town in Italy that we were bused to from the airport to give us a place to stay until we were able to get on our flight home. And all I will say is this: the hospitality that we did have in Italy was wonderful. People care about each other there. And I think that I can say that maybe one of my best experiences from the trip overall was just getting to meet people in different countries and interact with them. And in Italy, when we were in this crisis, we were at this hotel in the middle of nowhere, and they were feeding us meals and being sweet and trying to offer us, helpfulness as much as they could with our language barrier. But it was an experience. So Emily, we were also hoping to have been maybe in the Italian lakes instead, but we made the best of our little extension, if you will. Okay, so we are back from our trip. We've now all felt this. I want to do a couple just rapid fire questions for each of you, and I'll call on you. I want to know, first of all, favorite picture on your camera roll, Shelby.
Being goofy by the lakeside in Lucerne.
Emily.
Lisa took a great picture of me on Mount Pilatus with all of Switzerland and the Alps behind me.
Hank, this is hard as a photographer, I know, but favorite picture on the trip?
It was also in Mount Pilatus. Sometimes you look at your camera and you're like, when am I going to use the panorama setting? And this is the exact point on the globe where you want to use that. And being able to just get a sense of how vast the nature was we were viewing, that's really the only way that you can capture it. So I'm really glad that I have that to remember.
my favorite picture, and I had a lot. I think I made it maybe my profile picture online, but was at that sweet winery in Italy. And I was sitting on that beautiful patio and the light was hitting us. And I remember looking at everyone and being like, how is this real? How are we here in this, experiencing this like together? And so I snapped a little selfie of me sitting in that. And it's one of my favorites from the trip because I can actually like feel how happy and excited I was to just like be getting to experience this moment, you know? Okay, next question. It can either be best food in general or favorite meal. Hank.
I'm not necessarily a huge foodie, and this is going to really sound like a kid who only eats chicken fingers, and I promise that that's not the case for me. But in Italy, I had a pizza that basically was margarita pizza with French fried potatoes and hot dogs on it. But it was created in a way that it used those ingredients and it was delicious. So I'm not ashamed that I had it and I enjoyed it.
All right, so Hank's favorite meal was a hot dog and fries pizza in Italy. Got it. Just kidding. Shelby, favorite meal.
I think my favorite meal was, I think it was Salzburg. It was a lime basil ravioli pasta, and we all split it. It was just amazing.
I was so happy I got to split that with you. It was
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Hit the spot. So, Martha, your favorite meal on the trip?
My most memorable meal on the trip was in Germany. We had just gotten off of a tour and I walked into a beer garden. I was parched, okay? And I wanted a big old water and a beer. But unfortunately, when I ordered, I didn't realize when they asked me, do you want a liter, that they were talking about the beer. I was thinking a liter of water and a small beer. So to my surprise, it came out, the water was minuscule and the beer was like the size of my entire head. That was the most memorable part for me.
Emily, favorite meal?
I definitely want to say something from Italy, but the beer garden that we toured in Germany, I had the best schnitzel. I've never had schnitzel before, so I wanted to try. They put the little lemon wedge on top and some cranberry sauce, like it's Thanksgiving. But you put all that in one bite. Oh my God. That was probably my favorite meal on the trip for sure.
Oh, that schnitzel you had to experience. Boy, we really went all along. Okay, who had the best gelato? Because we had it in every city we were in. Who had the best gelato? Shelby, who had the best gelato?
I had the strawberry lemon and balsano, right? Yeah, balsano.
So Martha, favorite place for gelato?
I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you because my favorite gelato was in Germany again, in like a random hole in the wall kind of place, but they had the most beautiful assortment and I ended up getting the cherry vanilla.
Hank, favorite gelato?
It would have to be the one that Jurgen helped provide us when we were in kind of a need of a little sugar boost. So I think that really helped out.
Yeah, that was very sweet. So Jurgen, our tour director, did lots of things to help make us feel comfortable on this trip. And when he saw us all just profusely sweating in Venice at the end of our tour, and it really looked like we needed a little, no, I'm sorry, we were in Verona. That was our first stop. I kind of missed that on the trip, that we stopped in Verona on the way to Venice. How can I forget that? We saw the Juliet's balcony and everything. But yes, in Verona, when we were there for our short little break, we were all very hot. And Jurgen said, I'm going to take you guys and get you a little treat. And he took us to a gelato shop. And the funny part of that story is that we all ate gelato. And then those of us who wanted a secret spot to see Juliet's balcony had to go into a tiramisu shop and go upstairs and buy tiramisu to get to view the balcony. So we slammed 2 desserts in about 15 minutes of each other. But that was tiramisu. That was top-notch tiramisu. So it was worth it. Emily, did you tell me your favorite gelato stop?
It was definitely in the Italian lakes on the extension. I wish I remembered the name of the place because I know the logo had a cow on it. But we went 2 nights in a row and I wanted to try multiple things, but I just couldn't get away from my first order, which was 2 scoops, one of chocolate and one of this cherry. And it was heaven.
Everybody's going to be really hungry listening to this episode. So before we wrap up, I think this is the perfect opportunity to say that because we had a second successful Alumni and Friends trip, we have just booked our third. So we will be traveling, drum roll, to Scotland and Ireland in 2028. We'll be going on a highlights tour, again, getting to see some major cities, countryside, a lot of educational pieces to that trip, the same way that we got to experience the educational pieces. And it's one thing just to say you've been to these countries and these cities, but to get those personalized guided tours, the things that we all learn on that trip, it was an incredible educational experience. So don't think this is just everybody, hey, we're just exploring these cities. I mean, you're getting a lot for your money for the trip. I think we can all say that EF Go Ahead did an amazing job at really personalizing this experience and making it so enjoyable in a multitude of ways. So Scotland and Ireland, if anyone listening thinks, okay, this sold me now, I really want to travel and see this next trip with the JJC Alumni and Friends, that is going to be in July of 2028. And if you want to see more about that itinerary or to book and save your space, as we do anticipate this trip will potentially sell out, you'll want to visit jjc.edu/trip. We'll make sure that that's in the show notes too. So to wrap up, guys, I want everyone to just tell me, I'm going to call on each of you. I just want to know your final thoughts. Like, what did you think about this trip and would you go on another one again? Emily, you go first.
I'm just so grateful that I had the opportunity to go. I don't think I'd be brave enough to just do it on my own. And I'm a pretty seasoned traveler when it comes to the US, but to have this opportunity and to go with a travel group who had just those extra little personal touches and having Jurgen to help us with any advice, I'm just so blown away by the whole thing. I don't know how we'll top it by going, but maybe in 2 years that one will be even better. But I'm just so glad that I went.
Hank, what do you think? Are you going to join us for a third trip? What did you think of this one?
I just think it's an incredibly valuable thing to do. It's been about 10 years since I really put forth effort into traveling the world outside of the United States. And I haven't regretted any of it. It costs money, it costs time, but putting yourself into new situations, seeing new things, broadening your horizons, these are all things that are so valuable and that you carry with you long after your camera roll has gone way past it. It's always in the back of your mind, whether it's accepting new things or being open to new experiences. It's just a great thing that you can do. And I support anyone who wants to do it.
Martha, this was your first experience on a plane and being outside of the country. What did you think of this trip? And would you go on another one?
I felt that this trip was very well put together, and it's something I'm going to remember for a lifetime. And yes, I will most definitely be going to the next one.
Shelby, thoughts on this trip? And are you thinking about coming with us again?
I second everything they just said. They both said that wonderfully. Just like Emily, every day I woke up grateful that I was there and with the biggest smile on my face. I didn't think any day could get better than the day before, and they all were just so amazing. It was my first time to Europe, and like Hank said, the traveling for me just fills my soul, and I love it. So yes, I do think I will go on the next one. Already planning outfits, so let's get this planning started.
I love that you're already planning the outfits. Of course, that's where our mind goes. I also thought that this trip was just such a wonderful experience. And one thing that we didn't mention is that being together as a group like this, I think just bonding with other people, experiencing this kind of trip with other people and the way that it was just a different experience to travel with a group. And then the safety in numbers and the different ideas and perspectives. I am really very, very fortunate that this is my job and that I have been able to help set this up. And I am so excited to see who will join us on the next trip. So thank you all so much for being on this episode and for filming your promo videos in our different locations. And I don't know, just being a part of this experience.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen, for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for everything, Jen.
And to all of our listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you had fun hearing about our trip, and we hope you'll join us on the next one. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Roots and Branches JJC Alumni Podcast. For more episodes, information, foundation events, and ways to give or get involved, visit jjc.edu/alumni.